Monday Night Live with Greg and Neil. It is us, Neil and Greg, with Matterhorn Business Development here, as always, on Monday night at 7 o'clock for our Matterhorn live stream. So, welcome, whether you're watching on Facebook.
Go Bull!
As you can see, it is hockey season. The Lightning are doing game one tonight against Montreal for the Stanley Cup. So, we are in our proper attire. Most people probably don't pay any attention or know that that's going on, but hey, now you know.
That's right.
I'm in our alternate black jerseys.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick things for the YouTube membership members. We will have another live training this week. I will be sending out an email to everybody about that. There are a couple of new members this week. So if you're a new member, be sure you go back and at least watch, I would say, the first two membership trainings that we did and get caught up. There is a YouTube playlist that says Membership Live. Go there, watch the first couple that we did with my guest, Tony Melvin, and with Dr. Winteregg. That is my housekeeping for the night. So secondly, if you guys have any specific topics or subjects that you'd like us to cover on a live for a Monday night, please let us know, either in the comments or send us an email, whatever it might be. But we'd love to hear from you about what it is that you want to hear about. Tonight, we are going to talk about dealing with failure, dealing with rejection, dealing with bad days of business, of life, of whatever it might be. But just how do you push through the stops and the barriers and the things that build up, and how do you stop having those up and down days? You know, every day should be an up day. Now, that's not to say that there's not problems, because if your life didn't have any problems in it, it would be rather boring. It's like trying to play checkers against yourself. It's fun for a little while, and then it becomes too easy because you know what the other side is going to do. Oh, I'm going to move this one here. Oh, I didn't see that I could get triple jumped and lose, but I won. It's boring. Life is a game. You have to treat it like a game, and not every game is won by you all the time. That is part of it. Yep. And my personal opinion, Dad, when it comes to people getting rejected, people running into a one-star person, as we say, people having a bad day in the offices, they're not understanding that that is life and that is the way it goes.
That's the game.
That is the game.
That's the game. And you know, Neil and I never rehearse these. And so
we planned this out pretty far in advance.
Yeah.
We had 60 seconds before this go live.
So Neil shows up in his Bolts jersey. I'm like, oh, you're wearing a Bolts jersey. I got to go wear a Bolts jersey. But, you know, this topic now is appropriate for the Bolts because the Lightning hockey, if you don't know hockey, this is not a show about hockey. This is a show about business. But 2 years ago, the Lightning team had the best record in the history of the league since like 1992, like the best record in 25 or 30 years. And the very first round of the playoffs, they were seeded number 1. The number 8 seed beat them in 4 consecutive games, completely embarrassed them for another record that hadn't happened in like 30 years either. So that was 2018. Then in 2019 and 20, they didn't start out very well. They kind of picked up momentum throughout the season. They hit the playoffs. And what's interesting is in the year before playoffs, they lost 4 consecutive games. Last year, they did not lose 2 games in a row. They did not go undefeated, which would be awfully weird, in 4 rounds of best of 4, which is brutal in hockey. But they did not lose 2 consecutive games. They would have a bad game, and they would come back and play better. Oftentimes, when they came back, the other team was held scoreless. And that is followed through the first 3 rounds of this year. They will lose a game, but they have yet to lose 2 in a row. And we have seen them play some bad hockey. And maybe not for an entire game, but one of the games they had wrapped up with a 2-goal lead, and then they lost that game with like, I don't know, 30 minutes to go in the game. They should have won, and they completely left the other team off the hook. Well, they came back the next game and smashed them. And so here's my point is losing is part of the game. Having things go wrong is part of the game. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning. A lot of people don't know this. In Peyton Manning's first year, he set a record for interceptions. It was, I don't know, it was crazy numbers, like 30, which is crazy. But then he comes back, Hall of Fame, 2 Super Bowls. So here's the point of this athletic analogy is losing is part of the game. And I will tell you this, and this may sound weird. If you won all the time, every day, and there were no barriers and no challenges and no problems, you would be incredibly bored.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is, this is where the phrase and the saying money can't buy happiness comes from. And that is true because how many gazillionaire, billionaire, millionaires kill themselves?
Mhm.
Have kids who kill themselves, get addicted to drugs. They themselves are addicted to drugs, prostitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here's this person with all this money, and you think, man, if I had that much money, I would do it this way and I would do it that way. And, they go bankrupt. They have all these problems. Well, that is because, yes, they have all of this money. And so they have a different set of barriers than you're used to as somebody who doesn't have money or something like that. But they don't have a game in life because there aren't enough barriers and enough things to keep them motivated, enough things to keep them busy. And they get caught up into all this craziness because they don't have enough barriers in life. They don't have enough problems. Now, that is not to say that people don't have, how do I word this? You can have too many barriers in your life and be driven into apathy because there's nothing that you can do. Okay. That is true. That is why people who go to prison or jail or something of that nature have a hard time bouncing back when they're free because they have been so boxed in and no way of doing anything about it.
Right.
But you can go and have a bad day in life and not think that it's because of you or that you're the problem in your life or that there is a problem. People make mistakes and other people make mistakes that you are around. And you get caught up into that sometimes. But that doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It just is, that is how it is. And you can have problems and barriers. It's how you handle it. And, I think there's that phrase or that saying that, there's those catchphrases of life. It's not about how, how hard you go down. It's about how you get up. And you can hear that stuff so many times that you lose ideas of what it means or what it is. But it really is about, okay, I have a barrier here. My business has a barrier. My taxes are a barrier. This is a barrier. That's a barrier. I'm losing my space and I have to move out. But if you look at it from the viewpoint of, okay, I ran this play and the other team stopped it. So how do I outmaneuver the other team? And if you look at it from the perspective of this is a game, this is something that I'm doing, how do I move around that? All of a sudden, it becomes more fun to get yourself out of those barriers.
And so the bottom line here is whenever something goes wrong, something goes bad, it's a matter of how you respond. So you can completely cave yourself in, which, by the way, 3 years ago, the Lightning hockey team completely did. They lost 4 consecutive games to a team that they had beaten throughout the season. And as the series went on, they just played worse and worse. Well, they drafted some other players. They actually brought in Pat Maroon, who won the Stanley Cup that year. And he's not the best skater. He's not the best shooter, but he's one tough dude. And they call him the Big Rig. He's kind of like a Mack truck on skates. And he just brought a real scrappy fighting attitude. And this team right now refuses to lose 2 games in a row. We'll see what happens here in the final series. But this team now just gets more determined after they lose, whereas that team a couple years ago just completely wilted. And so you have a choice when things are going bad. And if you resist it, if you turn into a victim, it's just going to get worse. So you just have to take a deep breath and say, well, this is a fine mess that I've gotten myself into, or I tried this program and it didn't work and I lost some money. Okay, well, I learned. So I learned that's not the way to do it, not the way I'm going to do it. And so it's the test of an entrepreneur, just how resilient they can be, how they bounce back. And so don't ever hope for no barriers. I guarantee you'll get completely bored. And Neil was talking about wealthy kids. They have no barriers. And so they're going to make a game and do drugs or get in trouble with the law, whatever it might be. And that becomes then their game, because you're always going to have a game, and the game has to have an opponent of equal magnitude. If we have the high school senior basketball team playing the fifth grade basketball team, it's not going to be fun for anybody. The fifth graders are going to just be on the floor crying in about 5 minutes. And the seniors are going to, in order to make it a game, they're going to bench everybody but one person. So there's at least some barrier. So in order to have a game, there are barriers. But when things go bad, that's when you can call it building character or whatever. For me, it's reverting back to, why did you start this business to begin with? Why did you start it? Who are you helping? What product or service are you passionate about? And when things aren't going well, you always have to go back to and revert to, well, what was the game? Why was I doing this to begin with? And I will tell you this, if the game was to make a lot of money, which I'm fine with making a lot of money, obviously, but if the game was all about making a lot of money and it wasn't about helping someone, then it's not going to be worth it. Whatever challenge you have is not going to be worth it. And I cover this in my book, Fun at Work. Like, your basic purpose has to be about, who am I helping? What problem am I solving? And how am I going to help solve the problem for that customer? Because that's what the basic purpose of the business is. So you got in business to make a better hamburger or build a better mousetrap, and you have the idea that that's going to make you a lot of money. Okay, that's great, but who are you helping? How are you helping the consumer, so that when things are going wrong, and I guarantee things are going to go wrong, you always fall back on, what is the basic purpose of starting this business? And I talk about that a lot in the book. And so do not resist barriers. You have to embrace them. And so here comes a new challenge, a new problem. Embrace it, take it on, solve it, and you're going to pop out the other end much better. And I'll turn it over to you in a second, Neil, but I want to tell this story. I won't ever forget this. We had a dentist and his wife, and this has been, oh my goodness, 20 years ago, come in. And they had 3 staff members, and the staff members were giving them trouble about their pay and trouble about the hours that they were working, et cetera, et cetera. And one day the staff came up to the doctor and the wife and said, okay, so we decided that we all deserve a raise, or we're going to quit. And the doctor and the wife looked at each other and said, see you later. And their life was terrible for a month, because they didn't know the passwords. They didn't, and the staff thought that they could hold the doctor and spouse hostage. They put in literally 15 and 20-hour days for an entire month, but they learned the software, they learned the billing, they restructured everything. And in the end, they hired a great staff, and literally within a matter of 60 days, the whole place doubled. So they didn't resist it. They didn't cry about it. They're like, okay, so how did we set ourselves up for this? Well, we don't know anything about our business, so it's time for us to learn. And so they rolled up their sleeves and they stayed there till midnight and went home and got up at 6 o'clock and went back to work. And they did that for 4 weeks. And they said, well, we'll never be held hostage again. So that is the way a true entrepreneur responds to that kind of pressure, to that kind of problem, to that much trouble. So The bottom line here is it's not what you encounter, it's how you respond to the challenges and the barriers that you encounter. And if you embrace it and you figure it out, then you are just that much more capable and that much more able from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And I think that you said um, something very relevant here that I want to talk about that has everything to do with um, handling a bad day or handling bad people. Hi, Amy. Amy says hi in the comments. And Chris, I want you to know in the comments, I fixed it so that the last two member trainings are in the correct playlist. You're right; they did not get added, so I did that. Okay, so I want to talk about when it comes to dealing with adversity. The thing that I rely on the most with handling a bad day, a bad situation, a bad month. It doesn't matter what it is. Um, Confidence and certainty. Confidence and certainty are an internal thing that you have and that you have to gain. Now, I want to just I Googled really quickly. Confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. It's a firm trust. And certainty is a firm conviction that something is the case. Now, those are very interchangeable, but to me, they go together very well. So here's what I want you to understand about dealing with people. There is a certain amount of people in your environment and in the world, let's just say, whose job is to destroy your certainty and your trust in yourself. That is what they do. Okay. Now, I am
That's their
not,
game.
that is their game. This
Yeah.
is what these people do. You can do everything correct, and this person will still find something to prove you wrong or to make you wrong. Um, that person is only trying to get you to put your attention on yourself. Their job is to break you and make you doubt yourself. That is what they do. Okay. Um, and there's millions of examples like this out there, and there's millions of things. But there is this one video that I saw that just had me dying. I haven't seen it in a while. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Dad, you know who Gordon Ramsay is, right? The chef.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, so Gordon Ramsay loses his mind all the time, but
Yeah.
he's actually very good at what he's doing. Like he always has a path. But I saw this episode of one of those shows where he goes in and handles the restaurant, and everybody, has a whole new restaurant in life and all this stuff. And so there was this one video in this restaurant. I think it was in Brooklyn or Long Island or something, where everybody's eating their food at this restaurant and they're just like mind blown about how amazing the food is, and it sucked before and now it's awesome and everybody's great, and the chefs are in the kitchen like, oh my god, we've done this, like we actually made food people want to eat. And then there's this lady who's sitting there and she's eating her meat. She's like, ugh, this is awful, this is the worst thing I've ever eaten, I make better steak than this, whatever it is, right? And so the lady starts complaining and making noise, and the reason I think it was in like Brooklyn or Long Island or something, she had this very heavy New York accent, older lady, and so um, the waitress takes this complaint about how terrible the food is, and you can see her go, oh, because everybody else is super blown away in
Right.
this restaurant. So she goes to the back, she goes to the chefs. They're like practically high-fiving each other. They're having,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh, this food, this lady didn't like it." And the chefs are kind of like, "Huh?" And you can see them drop.
Yeah.
Now, Gordon knows that this is crap, and he
Right.
goes out there and tells her to F off. And it is hilarious. It is hilarious. And that to me is just like such a great like 3-minute clip of
Yeah.
like just seeing a person like this in action. A person walks in, sees everybody happy, and they're going to be the ones to make a problem out of it.
Yeah.
Now, those chefs, if Gordon hadn't been there,
Yeah.
would have felt like they failed, even though 100 other people love their food and it
Yeah.
was
There
a
was
complete
one complaint.
one complaint.
Yeah.
That person is there to upset everything. So imagine that you're going through life and you're doing everything right, and then somebody tells you how wrong you are. This is where people who have self-doubt and uncertainty listen to that, and it causes them to doubt or be more uncertain. And
Yep.
it starts a snowball effect.
Yep.
The only way to handle negativity is to know that you are correct. Now, the word correct is a very large word, because what is correct for you is not necessarily correct for me.
Hmm.
And so you will hear criticism, and you will hear people telling you that you're doing it badly. The question is, what is correct for you? And that is what you have to decide upon to be happy in life. What is correct for you? It doesn't matter if we're talking politics, religion, food, cars, hockey teams, global warming, whatever, right? You have to decide for yourself what is correct for you. Now, I will meet business owners and I will see them floundering, and I have to be able to give them advice that is able to communicate to them at a level that they can understand and take and move forward with, and
Hmm.
have it be their idea, not my idea. So there's a difference here. Amy is in, I think she's still watching. Amy is an interior decorator, an interior designer, and I know her personally. And Amy will show up at a house that's about to go on the market, and it'll be an absolute disaster. And if I walked in, I'd go, "This is the worst house I've ever seen. Get it all out of here, and I'll take care of it." Amy can't do that because she will completely destroy her relationship with the potential client. And so she has to mold it and go, "Well, what if we do it like this?" Now, the whole time, Amy is working off of a certainty of what she knows is going to be best and molding it to the certainty level of her client or her prospective client, so to speak. And as well as you can do that in life, that is going to actually gauge your success. I say stuff to people all the time that I don't mean. Now, does that make me a liar? No. What it means is I am taking what I'm actually thinking about them and giving it to them at a level that they will go, and they will think about. That is me passing my certainty um, over to them so that they can then go, "You know what? I can be successful in this business." Now, that is me passing certainty over to them, getting over their own their inhibitions, their fears, right? But that is actually how you get through life, is to talk to people and using your own confidence and certainty to know that what you're doing is correct. Now, I will make mistakes. And you see, this is really the difference between success and failure, is the ability to look inward and say, "You know what I thought was correct isn't. I'm going to change it and do this." And that is how you start to overcome these barriers. But understand that a negative person's job is to make you doubt yourself. And so when I go into a business, the thing I am looking for, especially in a failing or a struggling business, this is where it gets serious here, people. All I am doing is I am looking for the person that the owner has doubts about, but is keeping around. Because that means that that owner is not operating on their own confidence and their own certainty. They are operating on somebody else's influence. And so whenever I hear things like that in life, my red flags will just turn on immediately. And that's how I know whether to do business with somebody or not, is when I hear things of that nature. Now, I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, Dad, but
That's okay. And this is absolutely right. If things are chronically going wrong, and Amy put it in the comments here, some people have formed a habit of finding negative in everything. If things are chronically going wrong, you have a one-star person around you. These are people whose game is to make things go wrong, to alarm the owners, to convince them that there is no hope. And it's real interesting because Neil has had this attitude ever since he was a teenager. And I don't know, I don't remember how old you were, Neil, but you remember that dental practice we walked into in Fort Lauderdale?
I was like 16 or 17. Yeah.
Exactly. He was very young. And this practice should have been up by 25 to 35% on the program, the training program that they were on, and they were going backwards. So we were doing a seminar in the area, and we left early so we could just make a visit to the practices. On the way in, I told Neil, I said, the only thing we're doing here today, and this practice had it was a big practice, 15, 18 employees. The only thing we're doing today is we're looking for the troublemaker. So we went in, we were introduced. Some of the staff had already been to seminars and knew me. Some knew Neil, but there were some that we didn't know. And we were in there for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. We didn't want to disrupt the practice. And we went out to the elevator. I pushed the down button and I said, "Who is it?" And he nailed it. He gave the name. It's exactly who it was. And she was dismissed within a few weeks, and the practice just took off like a rocket. So if things are chronically bad, you have to look for the person who's making them bad, who's introverting you, who's passing on nothing but bad news. There's no hope, all is lost. But then if we take a look, it's kind of circling back around as, staying on point here, is you run into a barrier, then you're going to have barriers. There's no need to cry about it or cave in. I mean, you're not happy that things went wrong. Maybe you lost some money, but this is how you learn. And you learn from attacking that barrier and solving the problem. And now you're smarter and you're never going to make that mistake again. And if you're in the mode of growing, then there's always going to be the next barrier. And I will tell you this, there are people out there who don't want to grow. I'm fine just like this. And that's okay. I'm not being critical of that. But I know there are people out there who would love to grow, but they just don't have the courage or the energy or the conviction to their purpose to take on the barriers that growth is going to bring on. I've run into dentists before who hire no staff. All that tells me is that dentist just doesn't like people, doesn't want to confront people. He had the front office staff member or the dental hygienist or the dental assistant who finally he's just kind of like threw his hands up like, fine, I'm just going to do it all by myself. Well, he's not going to help very many people. He's going to have a really, really rough go of his life on a day-to-day basis. So playing a game really is about having a team. I mean, even race car drivers have coaches and golfers have coaches and tennis players have coaches. So it takes a team, and you're going to have barriers. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have failures. And it's a matter of your reaction to that. It's a matter of you sitting down and deciding that I'm going to learn from this, dive into it, figure it out, solve it, record how you solve it, and then just don't make that error again. And as now you have your foundation is the next level up for the next level of expansion.
That's absolutely correct. And your confidence and certainty in what you're doing is the driving force that has to push you through with making the changes in your business and the things that you're doing. Where most people get stuck is the indecision, the inability to decide, do I go left or right? And so then they just end up staying parked there. Mm-hmm. That's where a business really starts to suffer. You're better off turning left and finding out that you should have gone right and then turning back around rather than just sitting there and letting life go by. Yep. But your confidence and certainty and understanding of the problem is what's going to put you through it. And if you're habitually not able to make the right decisions, you might have somebody around you who is a one-star person who is making things harder for you. And that's where your failures come from. That's where fear of failure comes from. It's the inability to have that own confidence and that own certainty. And I'll just be honest with you, you have to believe in yourself if you're going to get anything done. And when you start to doubt yourself or start to doubt what's going on, you have somebody in your environment who is making you feel bad. And, you can only fix that by finding out that you have the ability to do something about it. And then when you know that, it can be a game again. Then it's a game again.
Well, and I want to address that confidence and certainty point. So let's say that this is a task, and then this is the next level above. So you've mastered this, and then you're taking on this, and now you're struggling, and you're not winning, and you're not happy, and you're losing confidence. How do you get your confidence back? Forget about this and just go back and do a lot of this. So back the gradient down, go back to what you know, go back to what you're certain of, and just do a bunch of this. Now, you might get your confidence to tackle this then in a day or a week or a month, but just go back to what you're certain of and drop back to this and go help a lot of people with this, and then hit the reset button and go after the next level. And then when you hit this level, you'll be all confident and certain about that, and then you can take on the next level. So the way you're going to get confidence and certainty is by winning and succeeding. And just getting overwhelmed trying to do something at the highest of gradients is just going to make you feel worse. So drop it back, go back to doing something that you know is right, you know you're good at. So go back to doing this, and then get some more training on this, and then take this on.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example of this, actually, of something that happened to me today. So I have one of my other businesses last week. We've had a good couple of weeks with closing. So I sat down today at my desk and I look at all the prospects. I'm like, I don't have any prospects right now. We've closed everybody out. We signed up these new accounts in the last 2 weeks, and this week I've got nothing going. So I'm just sitting there kind of like, okay, I have a list of 300 people I need to make a phone call to. I got, what do I do? I was kind of feeling deflated because I did have 2 really good weeks, but now I'm at the prospect of having nothing. I don't have any I don't have any hot prospects. I don't have anybody who's got paperwork that they're going to send back to me and it's going to be another close. I am at this ground zero. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, so we sent an email out last week. What happened with the email? Okay, we sent this email out and only 15 people opened it. Well, why did only 15 people open it? We should have on this list, we should have at least 100 people open this email. And this was a really good email. So I go back, I look, I find out we sent this email, but the subject line was not what I wanted it to be, or wasn't correct. And we had sent that same email to a different list with a different subject line, and it got way more openings than I would have expected. So I'm like, okay, I need to resend this email. So the first thing I do, I say, hey, that email we sent last week, nobody opened it. Everybody opened this one with the different subject line, even though it's the same interior. So we're going to resend that email right now. So it was 9:30. We sent the email out. By 11:30, I had 2 emails in saying, yes, I need to talk to you about this. And we had over a 65% open rate.
That's on that insane.
List. Yeah, it was the highest we'd ever had. So all of a sudden, I went from having nothing to 2 hot prospects. Then I go, okay, this one person I sent the paperwork to, and then they dropped out of communication with me for 2 weeks, and I haven't heard from them. So I send them a text. Then tonight, her husband calls me and says, hey, man, sorry, I forgot to call you back last week. We've been really busy. We need to get started. What do we have to do? How does this work? I answered all of his questions, sent him the paperwork. He's going to fill it out tomorrow and get it back to me. So all of a sudden, I've got 3 hot prospects in one day when I started with absolutely nothing. Now, I could have sat there and said, well, I'll just wait for the phone to ring. I'll just wait for something to happen. But I was like, okay, what can I do? I can send out an email. I can make some phone calls to these guys. I can get my junior Steve rocking and rolling on this other list. And all of a sudden, we've got motion in the ocean. Now, that might seem like a small example. You go, well, nobody told you to F off and go jump off of a bridge. Okay, well, that doesn't happen every day. Okay. But that is a normal day for a normal business owner. You sit down and you go, I've got no money coming in this week. How am I going to pay my staff? I've got 6 employees. And I'm sitting there looking at a week of nothing happening. Okay, I got to move, right? So what do? How do I be in control over what I can control? That was my certainty of what I knew I needed to do. And today we opened up 3 new prospects.
And so that's a matter of then embracing the barrier, embracing the situation, not resisting it, not making excuses about it, not whining about it or whatever, not like taking the day off because you're overwhelmed. It's like, No, let's sit down. Let's take a look. What have we done? What worked in the past? What didn't work now, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just a matter of that confidence and certainty that we're talking about, keeping your wits about you, staying engaged in the game. And it's just, that's how you win.
That's how you win. And
That's
just
how you
remember,
win.
every day is a new game. It's not,
Yeah.
if you're having a bad day, you got to figure out where you can do something about what is causing you to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the weather. It's not oh, my horoscope says that this is going to be a bad day, so I'm going to have a bad day. No, that's not how it works, right? There's a reason or there's a problem that you're running into that you can do something about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You have to look at what you're able to do something with, right? It's like what we talked about in the sports world, the sports analogy, you know, um never give up mentality, the never give up whatever it might be. um a race car driver has a flat tire, and he goes into the pits and his car's all torn up and he's 5 laps down, and yet he still comes out and is on the track hoping something will happen that will allow him to gain 1 or 2 extra positions. Now you could say, well, dude, you're 5 laps down, just forget about it, go into the private suite, have some beers, watch the race from TV in the air conditioning, and come back next week. No, they're out there, they're making it work. That's how you have to do it. You're not going to win every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you can't win any day, that's a different problem. But the point
Mm-hmm.
is, if you're not winning at all ever, you have to find something that you can do that will allow you to have a win of some sort.
Yep.
For me this morning, to have 60% of my list, which is a very specific list of a very specific target client, that is huge for me. If I have 60% of those people open that email, I could have taken the rest of the day off, because I was like, I did a whole day's thing right now, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's how big of an achievement that was to have that happen. But the point is that I figured out what I could do first, and then I just started working towards that. So that's how I deal with negative people. That's how I deal with negative things. It's just, somebody tells me I'm doing a bad job. Okay, yep, thank you. I'll figure that out. Thank you. And I just never talk to that person again, whether they're right or not. Usually they're not. But that's our idea of how to win a game, how to play a game, and how to get over that. So I hope that you guys learned something new here tonight. We could probably talk forever about this, and we're getting some great comments from Amy and Chris and other people in the chat. So thank you guys for watching. Remember, every Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern time, we are live doing these topics. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have some sort of an interaction with you of what other topics you want us to say. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to ask you, because you and I didn't talk about this,
Yeah.
but those who are watching, technically a week from today is the observance of the 4th of July. Are we going to have
Oh, yeah.
on the 5th of July? We should probably skip the 5th, don't you think?
All right, we're going to skip the 5th.
So we'll be back on the 12th.
Yes. And that'll give us more time to come up with some great topics as well, which is always good. But for tonight, go Bolts.
Go Bolts.
And we will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a great holiday if you're here in the U.S. for the 4th. If you have any other topics or subject you'd love to hear us about, love us to talk about on a live, go ahead, send us an email or drop some comments down below, and we will definitely hit to those. Thank you all. Have a good night.